What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Ben on Sports. This week, I have another NASCAR episode continuing on with the weekly NASCAR episodes. We do have an NHL, or I do have an NHL one in the works. Trade deadline is this week for the NHL. I'll do a trade deadline update and definitely going to do some March Madness stuff. So be looking forward to 2, maybe even 3 episodes a week coming up here shortly. But anyway, back to the point of this episode, which is NASCAR already. This is going to be race number 4, 1 month into the season. Let's see what it looks like. First of all, I do want to talk about last week. What a road course race. That felt like one of the better, if not the best, road course race in the next-gen car since they started racing it, beginning with the 2022 season. For a long time, it was. I feel like for a lot of this next gen car, they've been trying to figure out some stuff with the road course, but Coda's always seemed to perform. It'll be interesting to see if they stay on the circuit. I think out of all of the newer road courses, you're not going to get rid of Sonoma and Watkins Glen because they're synonymous with NASCAR. But I would argue that Coda, in terms of the race it puts on, has been the best road course race since it's come to the circuit. You think about a couple years ago, the Chastain, Allmendinger, and Bowman finish, and then this year they had Tyler fall off. Guys were passing. Chase Elliott made a tremendous charge during that last run. You had a 4-wide battle for the lead at one point coming down. It was also nice to see the drivers take it into their own hands instead of wrecking each other like there's been a lot of complaining about. Everybody raced relatively clean as you can on a road course. So that was refreshing. It was a really good road course race. There is some controversy from it, but there is still, at least back in the field, some beating and banging and dive bombing 18 cars. And I guess it even happened on the first lap with Ross Chastain. But it was still a pretty darn good race, I think. Maybe some hope going forward with road courses. And it seems like NASCAR's really trying to make strides, whether it's tires, whether it's car setup, and trying to make the racing at every track good. And speaking of great racing, can it keep up at a short track? NASCAR has not done a short track this year. We're starting to get into some of the bread and butter with Phoenix and Vegas coming up of the NASCAR schedule. Can NASCAR find a short track package? I personally love short tracks. If you saw the NASCAR 2025 preview, I talked about that. There's been a lot of complaining about why can't cars pass on short tracks? Why can't we race the way we used to be able to? Can NASCAR make strides to fix that? It seems like they're going to be running that softer tire and encourage tire fall off, and which can help with setups about how you want the tires to wear, where you want them to wear, short run, fast run, or long run, how fast you want to be over those two, all kinds of that stuff. So I'm hoping that the short track racing keeps getting better and better this year, and NASCAR keeps addressing it. I think Phoenix could be pretty good. Phoenix always is a little bit interesting with things like the dog leg. In some ways it hasn't been a great championship race. Some ways it's been a little bit hard to pass there, but I'm looking forward to Phoenix this week for some things I'll talk about in just a couple points. Wrapping up last week, is the Cindric penalty just? I think right, NASCAR obviously ruled that Cindric right reared somebody and wrecked him. So yes, he deserved to get penalized. And here's my thing: did Dylan get totaled, or not Dylan? Yeah, sorry. Did he get totaled? No. Was it a massive wreck that a lot of other people got caught up in? No. Really, it was just contact. And contact happens on road courses, not like that. But right, it was not great contact that just cost him a whole bunch of spots, which you can say whether or not that's fair, but that stuff happens in NASCAR a lot. Here's my point. We can say all we want about the circumstance and the outcome, but should the outcome dictate the punishment? NASCAR had already set a precedent where right rearing somebody is never okay. Now, I know on a road course, right, you're making left and right turns. It's not an oval where you're right rearing somebody down a straightaway. But I believe there was a wall on that outside, and coming out of that corner, it is a left-handed corner and you're going down a straightaway. If I just think for consistency's sake, NASCAR's in a little bit of a weird situation now where now they didn't suspend somebody. They did give them a significant points penalty and things and a significant financial fine. But I just think for consistency purposes, especially with some of the things that have happened recently in NASCAR, maybe you need to look at um, maybe you should have thought about suspending Cindric for a race just to keep consistency. If we want to, if as a sport, if you want to set the line that right rearing people in the walls, right, just absolutely hooking somebody, even though even I would argue, I mean, it's I guess it's in some ways it's a little bit different if it's the left ear, but if you want just that type of maneuver to be out of your sport and you want to set a hard line, I think you have to be consistent. Whether somebody saves it, whether somebody doesn't get totaled while whether somebody gets in a bad wreck or not. I think you have to be strict across the board. So yes, Cindric deserved to get penalized, and it's good to see that he is. I just worry about consistency and the message it sends, based off of what they've done in the last couple of years with incidents like Bubba Wallace and Chase Elliott. Number 4, does Ford find their first win? I don't think anybody at Ford is sweating too much. They've had speed, right? But they're the only manufacturer not to win a race, which is kind of funny because this is the 4th race, right? So that's why I don't think anybody's sweating. Ford has been good. I think the best driver under next gen at Phoenix Raceway has been a Ford driver. I'll get into that a little bit later. But can Ford finally get their win? Toyota has 2, and really Christopher Bell has 2. And then obviously William Byron and Chevy winning the 500. I don't think the pressure's on Ford yet, but if we get through March and it gets into April, I think Ford will definitely start to feel that pressure. And Ford, I think, has been the most inconsistent race team under next gen. It definitely felt like they were the slowest ones to start. They've obviously been continuously fast on super speedways, but I think on some of the other tracks, it's taken Ford time to find consistency and taken some of the Ford teams in general to find consistency on tracks they used to be consistent or at least competitive at. Is this the year for Bell? Obviously, he's on a hot start. He's won a drafting track race. He's won a road course race, and now he's going into a track that Toyota and him himself have been pretty good at. For Bell, obviously, he did make the championship 1 year and finished last at Phoenix because he wrecked out. But other than that, he's been pretty good at Phoenix. Can this be the year? Bell's still a pretty young guy, but he's one of the better drivers in NASCAR, and I don't think he has a weakness. I'm not saying he's as strong at every track like a Kyle Larson is, but I don't think he has any weaknesses. I think he can be competitive and have a top 10 run at pretty much any type of track. That's the kind of talent I think Bell has. Can this be the year he breaks through? He definitely is off to a good enough start. And how much can Phoenix tell us about the fastest teams? I alluded to this last week. We have had a weird start with 2 drafting tracks and a road course, which doesn't always tell you a lot about the actual state of the fastest teams and the fastest drivers because it's not NASCAR's bread and butter. I will be interested. I think Phoenix, I don't think it's going to tell us the whole story. I think the next 2 or 3 weeks, 2 weeks to a month, will really start to give everybody a better picture of, okay, these teams are the fastest. These teams are routinely bringing speed. These teams are good on certain types of tracks, but not these types of tracks. I think that kind of information the NASCAR community will begin to figure out, and it starts with Phoenix. You can't just show up and be fat, and you can't just bring anything and show up and be competitive, and you can't just have a ringer come in bad equipment and do well at this type of racetrack. So, yes, looking forward to Phoenix to start to figure out some of those big questions about the fastest teams. History at Phoenix, this is next gen, so it includes 6 races, including 3 championship races. I'm adding most top 5s and most top 10s. I'm going to start doing that from now on for the tracks where I feel like it's relevant. I didn't feel like it was necessarily relevant all the time for drafting tracks. Definitely Atlanta with it being new. And I didn't know if I felt like it was relevant for COTA only having 4 races there, one of which was rain shortened. But so I debuted it for Phoenix. Same thing's always winners. The 6 winners at Next Gen. Chase Briscoe. A lot of people forget about that. Chase Briscoe won his first career race. at Phoenix way back in March of 2022 and then went on to make the round of 8. Joey Logano obviously won the championship that year, winning at Phoenix. And knowing what we know now, that would not be the most controversial Joey Logano championship. William Byron has a win there, and then Ross Chastain won that race. Ryan Blaney won the championship at that race, and it was famously very upset that Ross Chastain was blocking him, if you can remember back to that race. Christopher Bell, a guy who's won 2 races in a row, won this race last season. Can he win it again and get to 3 straight wins? Definitely a competitor. And then Joey Logano last year winning arguably the worst, winning the championship last year at Phoenix, despite arguably having the worst season for any champion in the history of NASCAR. Best average finish. Remember I was talking about that Ford has arguably the best next-gen driver at Phoenix. Ryan Blaney in 6 races has an average finish of 2.8. I don't think enough people realize how insane that is. He's finished top 5 every single race at Phoenix and Next Gen. 2.8 is just absolutely an absurd average finish. Ryan Blaney has over a 6-spot average, or a 5.5 spot average finish spot over number 2, who was William Byron, and then Ross Chastain is in 3rd, and those are the only 3 guys averaging a top 10, obviously with Blaney averaging a top 5. Then you have Chris Buescher, a solid 10.3, Tyler Reddick at 11.2, and Kyle Larson at 11.3. Look forward to all those guys being competitors. Most top 5s, I've already said Ryan Blaney. It's insane going 6 for 6. That shows you just how good he is. You know he knows how to get around this course. You know he is going to be fast, and you know Ford can be fast, as his teammate has won 2 races, and way back when Chase Briscoe was still with SHR and in a Ford, they also won. So Ford has 3 of the last 6 winners at Phoenix, including 2 championship race wins and a 3rd championship won at Phoenix with a 2nd place finish, I believe Blaney was. Kyle Larson, William Byron, and Ross Chastain, for all intents and purposes, are tied with 3 top 5s in 6 races at Phoenix. And then there is 5 people tied at 2 and tied in 5th place, with Joey Logano, Christopher Bell, Chase Briscoe, Tyler Reddick, and Chris Buescher. Most top 10s, this one's fun too. Ryan Blaney, obviously, if you have 6 top 5s, you have 6 top 10s, but there's 7 people tied at 4, largely made up of the aforementioned in the top 5. Briscoe, Buescher, Reddick, Bell, Byron, Chastain, and Larson. 7 people tied with 4 top 10s in 6 races. Definitely seems like there could be a lot of competitors. Definitely seems as if there's a lot of guys that could be fast this week at Phoenix and have the history of being fast at Phoenix. So with that said, who do I think the favorites are to win? Teams. I mean, obviously Hendrick Motorsports, they're going to be the favorite to win on most tracks as a team. They usually have 4 of the fastest cars. They have some of the most talented drivers. Look for Hendrick to run up front. Team Penske I have here because Ryan Blaney, he's got to win at Phoenix eventually, right? If you have an average finish of 2.8 without a victory, I think eventually you're going to find victory lane. Obviously, Joey Logano has won twice here. And like I said earlier, Ford has won 3 times, and Penske is Ford's star team. Look for Penske to be very competitive. And then right behind him, I have Joe Gibbs Racing. Bell has a win. Hamlin has run fast. Martin Truex, before he retired, was usually a top 10 car, maybe top 15. And then I'm also looking at Chase Briscoe, right? Like, yes, he won in a Ford, but I would argue that on most tracks, I would rather be in Joe Gibbs equipment than Stewart-Haas equipment, especially at the end when Chase Briscoe was there. It felt like Stewart-Haas had fallen off a little bit from their glory days. I'm interested to see, with better equipment, can Chase Briscoe be even more competitive at Phoenix, one of his better tracks on the circuit. 23XI, Tyler Reddick is fast there. Toyota has done largely well at Phoenix. I expect Tyler Reddick and even Bubba Wallace, who's off to a great start this season, to be competitive and looking up front. And then Trackhouse Racing, Ross Chastain has a win there. He's usually sniffing around for top 10s at Phoenix. I expect Trackhouse, on the strength of Ross Chastain, to be good here. Driver rankings, I keep saying it. Ryan Blaney has got to be the favorite. At least in my book, to win this race. Kyle Larson is always a threat on these type of tracks. Maybe doesn't have the average finish, but he has the talent and he has the best equipment in NASCAR with Hendrick. Look forward to Kyle Larson in a similar situation with William Byron, who has one at Phoenix. I look and find it those two guys and Ryan Blaney will probably be in the top 10, looking at the top 5 all day. Ross Chastain, likely, like I said, he has a win. Although I'm a little bit worried that he has top 5 speed. I think he'll definitely have top 10 speed. But I like. I'm a big believer in if you've done it once at a track, you can do it again, especially with especially because it's not like way back, or it's not like where I'm accounting for the stats of the previous gen car. I'm accounting just for the next gen, and I think if you know how to be fast on this track in the next gen car, you're going to be able to do it consistently, which is why I have Chastain high. Tyler Reddick, I think, is going to be a contention for a top 5 finish again. I think he might be fast. Christopher Bell, it feels disrespectful. Hottest driver in NASCAR right now, and I have him 6th. But that's how talented I think this field is and how close it is. Joey Logano, 2 of the last 6 races here. Kind of won them when he had to, I guess, with the 2 championships. Showed up big time. Maybe he's NASCAR's best clutch performer. Joey Logano at 7th definitely is going to give Ford their second best chance to win this race and get their first of the season. Chase Briscoe, I would have him higher on this list. I'm still waiting to see consistent speed. He feels like a guy who's had speed a lot this year and is and at least last week he underperformed Atlanta. Toyota kind of struggled despite getting the win. Like outside that they struggled. But Chase Briscoe's fast at this track. He has better equipment. Look forward to seeing if he takes that step. Denny Hamlin has had some pretty good races at Phoenix at Next Gen, but he hasn't done it consistently, and he doesn't have as many top 5s as a lot of the guys in front of him. So based off of his history, I'm a little bit worried to put him too high. But Denny Hamlin, when you get onto these classic NASCAR tracks, these mile and a half, short track half miles, Denny Hamlin's always going to be a threat to win them. He's still one of the most talented drivers in NASCAR, especially in what I call those classic NASCAR tracks. Look out for Denny Hamlin this week. And Chris Buescher, I was talking about top 5, top 10s, average finish. Chris Buescher was top 6 or 7 in all of those categories at Phoenix. I don't expect too much to change. Or he's in top in those stats for the next gen car. He was driving for a long time. That probably hurts his stats before he got to RFK with the next gen. But specifically next gen, that's where Chris Buescher has been doing really well. Really kind of exploded his career in a sense. I expect him to be fast. Obviously, these are the 10 most drivers that I feel like have the best chance to win. They're not going to finish top 10. If these guys finish top 10, not even in this order, but if this is the correct top 10, I will be shocked, but happily surprised because it'll make me feel smart. I'm sure there's going to be some other contenders. Alex Bowman is a guy racing with Hendrick that's still fast. Ty Gibbs is usually pretty good on short tracks with Joe Gibbs. There's a lot of guys and some other teams that'll probably throw their hat in the ring, maybe even a Brad Keselowski. But these are just the 10 guys that I trust the most coming into this. And again, it's not like I don't trust other people. These are just the guys I'm looking at based off of history in the next gen car at Phoenix. Driver power rankings, you got some movement. Obviously, Christopher Bell has to go to 1 as he is a back-to-back winner. Ryan Blaney, I was going to move down a little bit, but he's showing speed at most of the tracks so far this year. He kind of was just okay last week. Didn't do awful, didn't do good either. But he also was so fast at Phoenix, I didn't want to put him down to 3 unless he sucks this week, honestly. William Byron seems like early on he's pretty quick. First place finished second last week. Obviously, another great start. It feels like he's getting off to a lot of great starts the last 2 or 3 years, and he doesn't always finish well. So can this be the year William Byron stays at the top all the way through the end of the season and wins a championship? Tyler Reddick has been fast all season. No different here. And Tyler Reddick's in a great point position, competitive in every race. I expect no less going into this week. Kyle Larson finally got over that drafting hump, it looked like, at Atlanta. He's the most talented driver in the sport. He's going to be fast at Phoenix. Kyle Larson, it's not a question of if he's going to win a race, it's going to be how many. Chase Elliott with an incredible drive through the field last week, and he needed it. He needed to find a way to get a good finish. Not that I'm saying, he's in an awful position, but it was definitely helpful. And now I expect Chase Elliott to continue running well and putting himself in a better in better position when it comes to points. Somebody that needs love is at number 7, Bubba Wallace. Say what you want about him. Everybody loves to boom. Some people love him. Some people hate him. Whatever you want to say about Bubba, he's off to the best start he's had in his career. And two good finishes on a drafting track. Won a duel for 10 extra points. He's top 10 in points right now. Finished or qualified second at COTA. Finished a little bit farther back on the field, but he got some points and got as many points as the 7th place finisher because of the stage points. Good job, Bubba Wallace. He's off to an incredible start. Let's see if it can continue through Phoenix. Denny Hamlin, I feel like that's just how it started. He's not. I don't feel right dropping him out of the top 10 because he is one of the best drivers in NASCAR. And the 3 tracks, like he got wrecked at Daytona, Atlanta, Toyota was having issues. He still had a decent finish, pretty good finish. And then COTA, he was bad. But Denny Hamlin, I kind of this start to the season, I don't think always gives you the truest picture of who was actually fast. I look for Denny Hamlin to rise up these rankings pretty quickly over the next month. Alex Bowman, another guy with a pretty good start to the season. Can he continue to build? He's found speed on road courses, and he has most of his early career. He's been getting better and better on drafting tracks, and he has some good drafting finishes this year. He's been up front at both Daytona and Atlanta. To me, despite he does have wins at ovals, to me though the question is, can Alex Bowman find consistency? Because I feel like one week, he'll get hot for a couple weeks and have 3 top 10s in a row, and then he'll get cold and you don't hear from him for 3 weeks. Can Alex Bowman be consistently fast in an oval? And if he can, he will be right up there with his other 300 teammates, because I feel like his 3 teammates are kind of in a class a little bit above him. They're like the 1A contender, and he's in the 1B, maybe even second tier. Can Bowman find consistent speed in an oval? That's the question this week and moving forward for him. And if he can be just as dangerous as the rest of his teammates. Kyle Busch with another great run. He's found speed at all 3 tracks early on. I think we're going to see a rebound from Kyle Busch, and the longer the year goes, every single week I'm believing more and more Kyle Busch is going to return to victory lane this season. Ross Chastain, I mean, I think we can all understand why I have him 12. I do have a beef to share about him. You can't do all the grandstanding you did about Carson Hocevar in Atlanta and then do what he did on lap 1 to Chase Elliott with that horrific dive bomb that was never going to work. And then after you do it, after all your grandstanding, you 1000% cannot just say, I'm not going to talk to the press about it, even though they probably have incredibly fair questions. Ross Chastain, not acceptable in my book, even if you did have a legitimate beef with Carson Hocevar. Last week, after that, you have to know optics, how situations look, and be willing to speak this week. Chris Buescher and Chase Briscoe are 2 guys that I think are in similar situations. They both are in pretty good equipment. Both have had a little bit of bad luck. Both have shown some speed. Maybe not always have the finishes to back it up. Both are fine on points. Both I expect to be competitive this week, and I think if either of them wins or even has a good points day with a good finish, either one of them might even break into the top 10, depending on what other drivers do this week. Austin Cindric with a massive drop-off, was pretty fast at COTA, probably should have had a better finish than he did in my book. He also just got levied a massive points penalty, which is going to drop him down. So he's starting to fall down. Can he stay in the top 20? Can he stay even in the top 15? That will be determined this week. Carson Hocevar off to a quietly good start. Well, maybe it wasn't quiet at Atlanta. Was kind of just running around. I would say he was the top half of the field car at COTA this week. I still think he has some things to learn, but I do think he's fast in most tracks. He knows how to get the car around. Shane Van Gisbergen, maybe not the win people were not the week people were expecting with a win, but he was fast. He was near the front most of the day, and he's still in a great spot points wise. And currently the rookie of the year, Michael McDowell. Got to put him on the list. He finished 11th this week, right outside the top 10. He's really good at road courses. He loves his super speedways and his drafting tracks. So, of course, he got off to a good start of the year. That's why I have him up here. Do I anticipate him staying up here longer? Maybe not. We'll see. It's really going to come down to can he consistently be fast on ovals. But who would have thought I would have 2 Spire Motorsports drivers here in the top 20. Ricky Stenhouse, decent day, still not a top 10. He historically hasn't been fast, but he is in a very, very good points position. He's had some great points days the first 3 weeks of the season. And for that reason, if you're good on points, I'm going to have you high up there. I'm going to have you in my standings, and he's in a great point spot. Don't expect it to continue necessarily. Only time will tell. And Todd Gilliland, another guy who has had some good runs, isn't doing awful on points. Had a good road course drive on or at Coda on Sunday. He showed speed as expected with a front row car at drafting tracks. And it's a similar question with Ricky Stenhouse and Michael McDowell and Carson Hocevar. Can you build on these unexpected good starts and continue to go through when as we get to these ovals where historically some of these lesser teams start to fall off and you see a bunching of the top NASCAR teams in the top 15? That is the question I'm looking forward to answering with some of these guys. Thank you, everybody, for taking time out of your week to come and listen. I hope you enjoyed that episode, another NASCAR episode. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Let me know how you feel about Cindric's penalty. Let me know how you feel about Briscoe's penalty getting overturned. Let me know if you think I have it all wrong about my power rankings and my favorites to win. I want to hear your favorites, maybe even some dark horse guys. Let me know. Just start a conversation in the comments. Who knows who might respond? Maybe we'll have meaningful online interaction. I don't know why that was so hard for me to say. Um, I know that seems unlikely, but who knows? Thank you for taking time out of your weeks to listen. Again, please like, comment, and subscribe. It helps me so much. Follow me on X if you want to. Come back next week if you're able. Peace.